coming up on this episode of Iowa Life. Learning about the origin of a unique town festival.
It's a small town celebration with a Star Trek theme, and the only one like it on the planet.
What it takes to restore farmland to prairie.
I started thinking, what else could it be? Could it become? And prairie came to mind.
And launching a printed newspaper to serve Black Iowans.
The Black Iowan newspaper is for those times you read a news story and felt excluded or othered.
This and more coming up next on Iowa Life.
Funding for Iowa Life is provided by the Gilchrist Foundation, founded by Jocelyn Gilchrist, furthering the philanthropic interests of the Gilchrist family in wildlife and conservation, the arts and public broadcasting, and disaster relief. Mark and Kay DeCook Charitable Foundation, proud to support programs that highlight the stories about the people and places of Iowa. The Strickler family, in loving memory of Lois Strickler, to support programs that highlight the importance of Iowa's natural resources on Iowa PBS. And by the Laney Grimm Fund for Inclusive Programming at the Iowa PBS Foundation.
For over 3 decades, thousands of Star Trek fans, also known as Trekkies,
They don't even feel like they're on.
make their way to the small Iowa community. They come to celebrate the birth of a fictional captain from a sci-fi TV show that won't happen for another 200 years. And it's all the brainchild of this man.
I'm Steve Miller, and I came up with the idea of Riverside being the future birthplace of Captain Kirk.
In the mid-1960s, Gene Roddenberry created the science fiction TV show Star Trek. He assembled a diverse cast of characters where humanity set aside their differences to work toward scientific discovery. The show captured imaginations of countless people across the world and sparked enthusiasm to create over a dozen movies, several spin-offs, fan clubs, conventions, and even a small-town festival.
Came out in 1966, and I was a senior in high school. Usually, when you're a senior in high school on Friday night at 8 o'clock, you're not home watching television with your family, but I liked the show. It was a show that captured a lot of people of my generation, my age at that time. Star Trek was there and pervasive.
Enterprise log, Captain James Kirk commanding.
I read the book, The Making of Star Trek, by Stephen Whitfield and Gene Roddenberry, and Roddenberry, of course, created Star Trek. There was a biography of Captain Kirk, and it says he appears to be about 34 years old and was born in a small town in the state of Iowa. Well, being born in a small town in the state of Iowa, that, of course, was something I latched onto. And so the evolution of that came when I was on the city council and the mayor, Robert Schneider, asked us to come to the next meeting and discuss how we would promote our community. And so I had this low-hanging fruit out there. So I brought it up at the council meeting. The rest of the council, there was only 3 other members there, then one guy said, you know, there's not much going on here now. This might help. So he seconded the motion, and the motion passed. And the next day, I called a friend, Tom Walsh, who was a writer for the Cedar Rapids Gazette, and told him, this is what we'd done at the council meeting the night before. He ran a front-page story on the Cedar Rapids Gazette the next day. And then it took off.
This final frontier starts in Riverside, Iowa. There it is, a monument honoring the future birth of Captain James T. Kirk.
Every television station in Iowa came. Radio stations were calling. I don't want to say it was a slow news time, but it was kind of a fun thing.
Claiming to be the future birthplace of Captain Kirk was the easy part. convincing the community and Hollywood lawyers proved to be a different challenge.
We hadn't really prepped the community for what was going on, and so the first response was a little out there. I've said the most difficult thing I had to do when I first came up with this was go down to our senior citizens dining, our congregate meal program, and explain to people in their 70s and 80s, a fictional character in a television show they'd never paid any attention to is going to be born here in another 238 years. Hard concept to get out there. In the meantime, Paramount Studios is offering to sue me into poverty and the community because they think we're stealing something. And so we exchanged certified letters and things back and forth. I had told the city council that I'd take responsibility for any legal action, not realizing that there would be any. So this then became incumbent on me to figure out.
Steve was facing an uphill battle, and Riverside's claim was in a tenuous position. But with the continued media attention, Steve's idea eventually reached the ears of Mr. Gene Roddenberry.
But once it started getting into the bigger newspapers, Gannett News called him and got a hold of him, and he thought it was his quote was, "It's a very enterprising idea, and as far as I'm concerned, the first volunteer has it." I'd been in discussion with their attorney, and I said, you know, we're not ever going to do anything to harm Paramount or the Star Trek franchise. We're giving you millions of dollars in free publicity. And she goes, you know, you're right. And so that was the end of it. That summer of 1985 was the first Trek Fest. It's a small town celebration with a Star Trek theme, and the only one like it on the planet.
This is an event like I would say no other convention that takes place Star Trek-wise throughout the whole entire year. Oh, yeah. The locals, this is for them. The Trekkies, this is also for them. If you're not a Trekkie, don't worry about it. This is home for everybody. We're just here to have a good time and celebrate, like I said, the future birthplace of Captain James T. Kirk.
For me, IDIC, infinite diversity and infinite combination. Everybody just accepting of everybody.
And the fellowship over the years you build with everybody. I mean, we've known most of these guys for decades.
I think just the vastness of the story that you can tell, because it's all of space. Yeah. So there's infinite stories and possibilities to capture.
Also, like Captain Kirk being just the space cowboy that he is, makes it that much more fun to watch.
For 3 decades, Riverside has embraced itself as the birthplace of this iconic fictional character. But why? Why, of all places, Iowa? Steve has a theory.
I was trying to get a hold of Gene Roddenberry forever to ask him why he said Captain Kirk was born in Iowa. And after he was dead, I did get a hold of Margelle Barrett, his wife, but she kind of alluded to the fact that when you said you were from Iowa in the 60s and the 50s in California, that meant something. It meant that A, you had a good education, and B, you knew how to work. And that's part of what I think was in Gene's mind. To us, being Iowans, like I said, it's such a rare occasion for us to feel like we're somebody. This really helps.
Don't tell me. You're from outer space.
No, I'm from Iowa. I only work in outer space.
I met David in college at the University of Iowa, and when we finished school, we moved to Waterloo, and he practiced law and I taught. After that, we were ready to come back to the farm, and so I taught in Waterloo, and he farmed the family farm. When David died, it was hard for me to see a way forward with managing acres and acres of corn and soybeans. I had good renters, but it was still a new task for me. So I started thinking, what else could it be? What could it become? And prairie came to mind. John Madsen's book, Where the Sky Began, came out. and David and I both read it. We loved the idea of Iowa's history. My husband was a big fan of history, so the thought of Iowa's landscape as it was 200 years ago intrigued us. This beautiful landscape of native plants, grasses, forbs, kept our interest, and that was always in the background. 2016, my husband died in May, and it came to me then, and then the next summer I contacted Laura Jackson.
We had planted some strips of prairie just a couple miles south of her. I didn't know her then, but something must have made an impression, because a year later, after her husband had passed away, she called us up and had this idea. It's amazing what happens when you plant any small bit of prairie. You know, if you build it, they will come. You know, the bees show up, butterflies show up, somehow the birds find it, and will raise a family there and try to make a go of it. It's not easy to plant a prairie, but it can be done in 1 year. But the management is forever. They need fire, and woody invasion is going to happen, and then you kind of get something that goes out of control, and then a lot of times they end up taking them out because they're just too much trouble. So we started talking in early 2017, and then, you know, worked through the various hoops and logistics of working with the UNI Foundation so that we could get a permanent easement on the land. We had to really convince the university that this was a good idea, that this is something that we could take care of properly and not just end up with an albatross around our necks, you know. So we worked out a map that said, all right, we're going to do this chunk in 2018, and then this chunk in 2019, and then 2020, 21, 22. But this field was very clean. It didn't have a lot of issues with weeds because it had been farmed for so long. So it was an ideal spot.
Now right here is like one little piece that just encapsulates all the pretty things that are blooming right now. Pale purple coneflower is just starting to bloom. The white is wild quinine. The orange butterfly weed is just stunning. It's just like neon orange. This other white, I think, is wild indigo, and it is so weird. It's got that bizarre shape, and they aren't very prevalent, but when they are, they just glow. I don't have children, so it's wonderful for me. I can walk on the prairie every day, but I want to share it and have the young people in schools come and learn about the history and appreciate being outside in all this beauty.
So we're out looking a different way to look for insects. We're looking at sign of insects, meaning some of the leaves that are woven together, or a plant that's bending over, and we go down the stem and we find the little hole of the borer in the stem. So this is a planted prairie. How do you get the insects that need these plants here? They come on their own. How do they find it? Where's the next prairie around here? And yet they find this. Mm-hmm. I think it's exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool also.
It changes every day, particularly this time of the year after the prairie was burned, that everything is starting to flower. It's like spring every day. It's an unending, joyful surprise to come to the prairie every day.
Well, it was about 85% prairie and the rest wetlands and woodlands. The landscape we see today is almost entirely corn and soybeans, with only very tiny fractions of that agricultural grassland that used to be there. You know, I think we're doing what we can in the face of some pretty staggering facts. You know, climate change. And then, you know, agriculture continues to intensify. So we try to save as much as we can so something makes it. So is the glass 99% empty or 1% full? But, you know, there are lots of people who appreciate prairie and want to have some, you know. So I don't think anyone should be intimidated into thinking, well, I have to give them 300 acres? No, you know. But It's an astonishing gift.
At the dedication, I quoted Willa Cather, "We come and go, but the land is always here. The people who love and understand it are the people who own it, for a little while." And then I said, my little while is over. I'm here with you people who love the prairie and dedicating it to you and your stewardship. But I want you to remember that the original people who loved and understood it cared for it for thousands of years and maintained it as prairie.
The Black Iowa newspaper is for those times you read a news story and felt excluded or othered. It's for the times you wondered why blacks dominate crime coverage but little else. It's for the times our stories simply weren't covered or they got it wrong again. This is for the times you wanted to read something positive or nuanced but couldn't find it or couldn't afford it on top of everything else. This is for all of those times people ask, are there black people in Iowa? My name is Dana James, and I'm founder and publisher of Black Iowa News. Blacks make up 4% of Iowa's population. We're existing within this framework that has us in a corner, it has us in a box. We know people are being facetious when they say, are there black people in Iowa? But we are here, and many of us are doing great things. We're helping our communities. It's not always seen. And so a lot about what I do at Black Iowa News is that being heard piece. Like we need to be heard, we need to be seen. There's too much talent in the state for us not to have our own newspaper. There's plenty of things that say, the industry is talking about, the decline of newspapers. We already know that's bad for our democracy, but it's also bad for us as black people, because now there's even fewer opportunities for our stories to be told. I started it just, with the friends and family and journalists, people that I knew. Pass it along. It was really to keep us safe.
Tonight, the U.S. death toll rises to 30.
I was noticing what was happening with the pandemic. And I'm reading stories from all across the country about how black families, are just getting decimated. Here in Iowa, the news really wasn't doing a great job of telling me how many black Iowans were being affected. So I started trying to dig through the numbers and find the numbers. I studied Substack's platform, and I was like, you know what, I can do this. But at the same time, I'm doing it kind of in this part-time way because I'm still working for this insurance company. So then George Floyd gets murdered. The protest movements and everything started. And the CEO of that company, he sent out an email and it said, all people matter. And I cried for a long time on my husband's shoulder because I was so angry. And so that is really what took Black Iowa News to new heights, because I knew in my heart I could not continue to work there. I just cranked out story after story. People just started to, toss me like $75 here, $100 here, and kind of cheer me on and say, keep going. In the business spotlight, which I think is...
Oh, well, shut your mouth.
Bam.
Okay, there she goes. Yes.
I really want Black Iowa News to be that unifying force within the black community, to be a way to bring us all together. I want to give Black Iowans the opportunity to really be seen and for the stories to really be stories that can help them improve, help elevate them, help their issues be seen. Yeah, so this is the inaugural issue. It's just a joy working on it. I could be very tired and it could be 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm writing stories or I'm doing layout and I still have that giddy feeling. It's great, it's fun. I want to put out the most high quality, best paper that I can for Black Iowans because we really deserve it. We deserve that representation, and we deserve great, high-quality journalism, and that's what it's about.
It's not my culture, so I don't know much about it, but I think that's what makes me love it even more. It's my favorite part about band.
Everything like quinceañeras, birthday parties, family get-togethers, you always have mariachi music playing. You want to enjoy some of our culture too because it's fun. We can enjoy it together and connect as people.
I tell people band directors leave college with the holy trinity of band. You've got to have a concert band, a marching band, a jazz band. But there's more to music than that. There's just all kinds of things we can get out there and do. It's just, you gotta have your comfort level and go meet the students where they are. Denison has always had a very strong band tradition. But I would get up in front of the concert band, and at the time there was about 110 or so in the band, 120, and I'd look out at the concert band. It did not look like the student population. You can see the demographics in our elementary schools, and you can see the trend that was happening, and if we didn't do something, the band program wasn't going to be what it had been. So I immediately started looking, well, how can we make sure we are meeting the community? West Music, which is a big music store out in eastern Iowa, was sponsoring a clinic, and the clinic was how to start a mariachi program. And I nearly fell out of my chair when I saw that, and so I took that as my sign, went to the clinic, said, this is it, we gotta do this. It was very doable.
This is our first program, and it's right here in the state of Iowa, so how great is that? So thank you very much.
Here we are, 10 years later, 10, 11 years later, with the program.
Yo sé bien que estoy afuera, pero el día que me muera, sé que tendrás.
So today's our fundraiser. It's what we do to kind of prepare the whole year for. It's our chance to showcase our mariachi groups, mostly for the community.
I like it though, because at the same time it feels like everyone's a family because they come to support. Yeah. So it feels really nice, yeah.
The audience, it's great. You look out in the audience and it is a slice of Denison. It is everybody, it's every walk of life. It bridges everybody together, because in the end, everybody likes live music. They like to come out and see it. So it's been a cool thing to see in the community.
Hey, say it again. Serio? You're good. Serio?
You have to put in that extra bit of effort. Go out to people and show that I care about their culture, just like they probably care about mine. You know, you have to put in the effort to know what the song means so you can play it correctly, and put in the effort, you know, so you're fitting the style of each song.
If you had told me, and you're going to have a mariachi program, and it's going to change the community, change the school, and for the positive, it's obviously way more than I could have dreamed. I mean, this is the job I was hoping to have, and then some.
You have to accept everything you see in the world. And My group, my top group people, the people I play with, that I have practiced with every Tuesday in seminar, during school, and outside of school, is that everyone has different lives, and you really don't know what's going on and how people take things and what they're going through. So being a down-to-earth person is what I'll take away. It sounds cheesy, it's a classic, oh, down to earth, but you don't know what other people go through or what other people's lives are like until you're put in their shoes. And I was put in other people's shoes when I joined this program.
Funding for Iowa Life is provided by the Gilchrist Foundation, founded by Jocelyn Gilchrist, furthering the philanthropic interests of the Gilchrist family in wildlife and conservation, the arts and public broadcasting, and disaster relief. Mark and Kay DeCook Charitable Foundation, proud to support programs that highlight the stories about the people and places of Iowa. The Strickler family, in loving memory of Lois Strickler, to support programs that highlight the importance of Iowa's natural resources on Iowa PBS, and by the Laney Grimm Fund for Inclusive Programming at the Iowa PBS Foundation.